All right, everyone, just like it says on screen, it is November 21st, and we have a brand new Deadlock balance patch. Hey everyone, this is Connor here at Dead Unlocked, and this one in classic Yoshi Deadlock developer fashion is an absolute doozy. Look at all this text. I've had a quick chance to read over it, but I quickly want to go through what I believe to be the 5 biggest changes coming in this patch. Let's take a look. All right, this patch has an absolute ton in it, but the biggest thing I want to start off talking about is there is a huge change to mid-boss. So let's get into the mid-boss changes. I'm starting with this because this has probably been, in my mind at least, the most problematic part of the way the game's been balanced so far. So, Rejuve buff no longer grants 10% max HP, 15% fire rate, and 15% spirit damage amp. Thank goodness, what a great thing to do away with. Mid-boss base health has also been increased from 13,000 to 14,000. Health growth per minute has also been increased from 200 to 230, make it a little bit stockier later in the game. And the team that kills mid-boss now gets +2 permanent buffs per player. So essentially, I'm assuming there's also a Rejuve kind of credit that goes into this still. There was no mention of that, but that still seems like it would be on the table here. Basically, we're getting rid of the stats that made mid-boss really game-swinging. 10% max HP, 15% fire rate, 15% spirit damage amp, all those things on top of 3 extra lives was just crazy. This, basically the +2 permanent buffs make a lot more sense. So this is basically like everyone does Sinners almost. I think Sinners are 3 permanent buffs. This is 2 for each player. So you basically get a lot of Sinners for your team. You get Rejuves, and it's also a little bit harder to kill. So hopefully this creates a little bit less of the meta of win a team fight around 20 minutes, do mid-boss and win. I think that they are wanting to go away from that a little bit. I think mid-boss is still something that developers want to be very strong, clearly, but it's going to be way less of a just complete overturn than it was earlier. So big nerfs to mid coming through in this one from what I can tell. The second thing has to do with troopers. So troopers have been really, pretty significantly overhauled here. So basically, reading off from this, the first half of the souls that fly out still fly out as a deniable orb. However, rather than the other half being instantly given to nearby players, it falls to the ground as an orb that you will need to get near to pick up. Has an 18-meter capture radius until it'll travel to you once you get within that radius. Only one player needs to claim it, and the same shared rules still apply. There's a lot of nuance here as well as to how that's going to work. The other big change is that medic troopers now no longer have a passive healing pulse ability. Instead, they will now drop a medic pack when you kill them, has the same pickup range duration mechanics as the soul orbs on the ground, heals everyone in a 30-meter radius for 10% of their missing health, as well as 72 health +2 per minute game time. So basically it'll scale more into the late game how it heals. This is going to be a super interesting one to figure out how this actually plays out. I'm not sure why this change was made when I'm thinking about like problems in the game and what problems this solves. This one's a little bit of a head scratcher. I'd be curious to think what people think in the comments about this. My only guess is that this is maybe trying to combat a little bit of like the kind of go from lane to lane and poach wave and then leave. This actually might require you to get in lane a little bit more. That's just my guess though, but in any case, this is going to be one to absolutely keep an eye on for how this pans out. I also think this makes healing troopers way, way better. Also because it basically drops the medic pack when you kill them. So it's a way different mechanic for how, in particular, the medic troopers used to work. But yeah, so in between that and mid-boss, those are kind of our 2 biggest like overall game state changes. I'm not going to talk about any of the rest of those in this video, but just it's worth saying a lot of the camps have changed in terms of like their damage. A lot of them have changed in terms of their spawn timings are a little bit different now. Sinners have changed in terms of the damage that you get from punching them, all that. And then there's just some also like different spirit investment, vitality, weapon investment, all these. I encourage you all to read these patch notes in full, genuinely, if you want to go through all of them. I just want to talk about high points here. And the last thing I guess I'll quickly mention about overall game state is walkers are being changed significantly. My guess that these changes are going kind of coming through before they move into the bull walkers that we've kind of heard talked about and should be coming in December or the next big patch, right? This seems like it's kind of a preeminent, test out for how new walkers are going to look in Deadlock. But let's get to some other things that you really need to be keeping an eye on for in this patch. So across the board, cooldown reduction has been totally nerfed. So if you're looking here, I mean, there's an entire section about this in the item column. I figured this was worth calling out. So enchanters, compressed cooldown, superior cooldown, trans cooldown, spell slinger, spiritual overflow, echo shard, scourge, and just golden statues all now have less of an impact on cooldown reduction. So essentially what this means is that ability spam and item spam in particular are going to become less prevalent. a lot of this I feel like is getting at, some kind of problematic balance things that have happened in the past. So like with an ethereal shift meta, where you're able to use that item like every, I don't know how many seconds you could really get it up to, but you can get a lot of really powerful cooldowns in this game pretty low, and people were just stacking those benefits over and over again, and then you throw Echo Shard in there and it just becomes a mess. So expect a little bit less just rapid cooldown reduction use in Deadlock moving forward. All right, next up, I want to talk about one item in particular. It's hard to do this because there's a lot of item changes on here, like so many, but Capacitor in particular has a huge change where now it will no longer dispel buffs. This is kind of the calling card of the item, and this is really why it's been so prominent right now in the meta, especially when you're thinking about countering something like a Viscous Cube. That's the example everyone always points to, but there's so many buffs this item gets rid of, or at least it used to get rid of. Now those have been moved to Curse, so it'll be really interesting to see if we just enter into a Curse meta. But in any case, the item has changed a little bit otherwise as well now. The slow debuff now prevents stamina usage and silences movement abilities. It's got a little bit lower of a cooldown. Shock damage is lower, but can also scale better. So some changes coming to Capacitor, but big news that it will no longer dispel buffs. That is a crazy change, probably a good one. It'll be very interesting to see what that has as far as an impact on the meta moving forward. All right, and last thing I kind of want to quickly look at, there's a lot of hero balance changes, same thing as items. There's going to be videos out there going over all the changes in this patch that will probably be an hour and a half or 2 hours long, because it'd be very easy to do that with these. But I do want to take 1 second at least, because the Kelvin changes in particular really caught my eye when I was reading through this. So let's talk about Kelvin. I think Kelvin has kind of been taken out back, so to speak. So his bullet velocity was reduced from 254 to 160. That feels like a huge amount. Frost Grenade base damage reduced from 74 to 60. His tier 2 on Frozen Shelter, really importantly, changed from minus 45 second cooldown to plus 1 second duration. That is a huge hit to the frequency you can use Dome, and really now makes Dome like this very precious resource that you have to manage. And not only that, but the duration of it was reduced from 5.5 seconds to 5 seconds. So again, this is going to completely change the way Kelvin fits into the meta. He's really been a mainstay from almost the very early on in Deadlock. This has been a hero that you could play in just about any game. Now you're going to really start seeing Kelvin played in a lot different of a way. I think we'll probably start seeing like some beam Kelvin again, spirit use. That way you still have the Frozen Shelter, but it's not kind of like the core part of the build or the crux, right? Like I said, though, there are a lot of other changes in here. If you have a main that is listed here, I would absolutely check on if they've been impacted by this. What are the severity of the changes? I quickly read through all of these, and I feel like Kelvin's is basically amongst the worst, but I would be curious to hear what else you all think of this patch. Tons of really great changes here. Like I said, I could spend a lot of time on this one going through all the different changes, but I at least wanted to give you all 5 quick ones. That way when you load up Deadlock, later tonight or tomorrow to play, you're not totally caught off guard. These are kind of, to me at least, the highest meta changing points that will happen. But in any case, let me know what you all think about this one. I'm going to go hop on some games right now. I have not actually had a chance to test this out. I wanted to get on immediately and make a video, but as always, thank you all so much for tuning in, and from our house to yours, we'll see you all next time here at Dead Unlocked.